Welcome to the August edition of North St. Paul Notes. I'm your host, Paul Anderson. Coming up in the next half hour, we'll get an update on the North St. Paul Veterans Memorial Park project. Stay tuned. North St. Paul Notes is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to the August edition of North St. Paul Notes. We hope this show will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. Joining me now to talk about the North St. Paul Veterans Memorial Park project is Veterans Committee Chair Dan Fisher and North St. Paul City Council member Terry Furlong. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Paul.
This is your second appearance, I know, on this program, and the first time was, I think it was December of 2012.
How time flies.
Yes, a lot has gone on since that time. But actually the project started before that date. Dan, you seem to have a memory for those things. What do you remember?
I think we happened by Terry's store, and he gathered his group that way, and it was late 2010. And we started the formal meetings in early 2011 up at North High in the ROTC room.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the group grew from that core group of about 5.
Okay. So this just started as kind of a casual conversation?
No, I think it, through the Parks and Rec, we've been talking about the Veterans Memorial. It was displaced a few years ago with Highway 36, the division of the old Cannon Park, and
that's right.
The Historical Society, hosts the Veterans Memorial right now with the cannon and the flags, and I think it's always been kind of a vision of the Park and Rec to maybe move it back to where it was.
Yeah, at that time, I think you were chair of the Park and Rec
Correct.
Committee, weren't you?
Correct.
Or that commission. And the site, I think most of our viewers know where it is or what the location is, but it has always been a park ever since the beginning of the town, actually. Back in that day, of course, Highway 36 didn't run through there, but it was a park just north of the railroad tracks, and actually the train depot, the original train depot, was on the south side of the park, and that burned down in 1911, and they never rebuilt it. But since then, of course, it has been called, originally it was called Central Park, and then it became Cannon Park because the cannon was so obvious there, and everyone seemed to like that name better, so it automatically became Cannon Park. Not officially, but
Right.
And then now it'll be the Veterans Park. And of course, the park is much smaller than it was originally. It has been nibbled at by Highway 36
Right.
over the years. So,
Yeah, it got divided, with 36 coming in, that we have a slip ramp now that goes between kind of the old park and where the Veterans is going to be.
right.
But it's an entrance into our city. So as people come into our city, they're going to see this beautiful Veterans Park. So I think it's a good.
Well,
I think it's a good location for it.
It's a better option than an empty lot that
Right.
it was before, and so I think it's a good use for that.
Some of the old documents, the proclamation from the city says their intent was to reclaim Old Cannon Park or rejuvenate it. And I think when Ellsworth, Erickson, and an earlier group attempted this, some of those documents also state that they were going to try to make Veterans Park or Cannon Park updated to a Veterans Park.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Ellsworth was one who was really pushing the issue in the early stages. And
He's actually the one that got me going on this.
oh, he is.
Because
Okay.
many years ago, he came in and he had a plan to, to redo the park for
Right.
veterans, and then the highway came in, and it just kind of, his plan wasn't quite right for that site, and just kind of lost vision of his. So
Well, it seemed like a not too hard a project to do, but as is the case in most situations, it becomes more complicated and larger, a larger task than you expect. And I think you would agree that that happened in this case.
Yeah, I really do. When you get recruited for a project like this, you assume you're just going to sit around the table and go, yeah, I vote aye. It doesn't turn out that way. There's so many more jobs that come along and they multiply,
Right.
and pretty soon you find that you need help, and you go looking for someone who's an expert in that field, and you look for a historian like you are, Paul, our
Well, that-
committee historian.
I guess that's how I got involved, but I'm not sure how much help that has been. I was going to mention more about that later, but some of the things that make it more complicated, I guess, are things in the past, but just given a few examples of things that you've run into that made it more complicated.
Well, I can say that the the research for finding the names on the memorial wall has been an eye-opener. It's been enlightening because it's not a complete list. Like we expect the History Center to have all the names, or
Right.
the VFW or the Legion, and they didn't. So
Right.
we had to depend on a lot of the families who are still residing in North St. Paul
Sure.
to give us updates and ideas of where to go, or other veterans that they might know about. And right now, we are up to 30 names on the historical wall, going from World War I out to Afghanistan, and all the conflicts that North St. Paul veterans who paid the ultimate price. And our criteria was 55109, the old mailing code for the
Right.
North St. Paul area. So now you have to do a selection in something, in Maplewood 55109, or North St. Paul 55109.
Or Oakdale.
Or Oakdale.
At
So
one
it
time.
gets to be, you have to be careful.
Now, when we were looking at that list that you're holding, on the left you have World War I veterans who were lost in combat, and then below that is World War II. And for some reason, we have a good list of World War I because it was on a plaque that we used to have under the cannon in the park, and when it was Central Park. So this plaque was there, and that is a pretty good list of those who were lost. But World War II, we only had maybe 4 names, and I thought that isn't right. There has to be more than that. So we started looking more. I was reading the old newspapers from the 40s, and I found at least 3 more names listed in the newspaper. Now, I haven't got a complete listing of newspapers, so I still have to find more information about that. So there may be some more appearing.
Well, it affects our, excuse me, it affects our artwork also, because when we make the panel of the memorial, those who are killed, missing in action, or prisoners of war, we have to leave areas open,
Right.
because we don't know how that's going to grow with your files or with your findings. So it's easier to do that, leave open areas and add later, than to make a mistake because you cannot take it off.
Right.
you don't want to be erasing.
No, you can't erase granite very easily.
That's for sure.
And it's not an uncommon problem, because Sunday at Splash, the fellow who did the Vietnam Wall down at the state capitol came by, and he told us all of the things they went through for 1,100 names. So,
Right.
you know, it's a problem regardless of size.
It was interesting going through the list because we did receive some lists from the county or from some veterans organizations, but they would list all the names by county. They wouldn't name the town. So then you have to figure out, well, is this name from North St. Paul, or where is it from in Ramsey County? Well, it could have been Washington County too, so there's another list. So that's just an example. Any other things that you could mention that were complications?
Well, Terry, I think that just the logistics of architecture and design and city codes, all of these things were new to all of us because we're volunteers.
Right.
None of us are professional people in that professional monument builders.
Right.
So we contact our mentors, other monument builders. Rochester was a prime one. And we ask them, how did you do it? And they give us some leads, and then we go forward and do what we can. But we're always learning, so the learning curve is always there for our core team of 10.
Well, how do things stand right now as far as from your perspective? You Terry, chime in anytime.
I would say, one of the difficulties, which is a great difficulty to have, is that when we started this, when we started fundraising, it caught on right away, and I think we had a couple hundred names, within a couple months, which was very exciting for us.
Surprising too.
Very surprising, yeah. So as that caught on, this plan, is a three-phase plan. So the first phase costs so much money, second phase costs so much, and then the third phase costs so much. Well, with us doing our due diligence and I think our persistence in regards to trying to get extra money from the state through bonding and through grants, we applied for bonding and applied for the legacy grant. So we end up going down to the Capitol, and the team presented it to the House and to the Senate, and we asked for bonding money, and then we also filled out a grant for the legacy. Well, we ended up receiving both of them, so we
Right.
got $100,000 from the bonding and $10,000 from the legacy grant. So that's exciting for us because now those first, second, and third phases now can all be done at once.
So you had plans to do this later on.
Correct. So
Perhaps
now this,
another year or two.
right. So actually, this brought us a lot quicker to get the whole
Sure.
plan done at once. So it might have saved us 5 years, 6 years to when we got the bonding.
Right.
So it's exciting for us, but it just accelerated everything. It accelerated this phase 2 and phase 3. So we really want to, get it in line, and it's been a challenge because it's all new to us. Like Dan said, we're all volunteers, and we've never gotten bonding before, we've never had legacy
Right.
money before, and there's rules to follow if you do get those.
Right.
And once you get them, it changes a little bit. It changes what you have to present and what the state is looking for. So it's a good thing to have. It's a
Right.
very good thing to have, and we appreciate, us getting that money because now we're going to have that full, all three phases done at
And it
once.
doesn't mean that I should say it means that you won't have to do years and years of fundraising too.
Correct.
So that makes a big difference.
Correct.
One of the most exciting thing of this whole program was the interaction with the public. When Terry had someone print these flyers up, which we just jerry-rigged and made and sent them out with information that would be necessary, it caught on with a few, just like you said. A year ago, we probably had 200 pavers or less than 200. But we worked the car shows, we did splash, we did wrestling matches.
We went to a wrestling match. And it was-
match. That was
and
fun.
people were interested, and we sold a few pavers. So it was-
But
that's a whole story
it
on
was
its own.
It was awareness. And what's happened is talking to the public and telling about what we're doing and showing the design, and that we have sold now over 430 individual pavers at $100 a piece. And we're coming to a point where we have to order August 1 to get that batch in the pipeline, and then start the next 100 count batch for cost purposes.
Sure.
That by the time we're built, I'm sure we have room for 3,600 pavers. We're over 10% right now.
Yeah.
So this has been exciting, and talking to the people is really an upper. The people like to talk to you. They like to tell you the story of their family.
Sure.
And as they do, we realize that we're going to lay these bricks out in the story of families. And that's what's important to these people. They want to tell their family story.
Sure.
They're right on the plaza.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to be from North St. Paul. We have
Right.
a lot of people that are buying from out of state, you know, who have some sort of connection in the area. You know, I've got 2 uncles that are going to be presented there. You know, they're from out of town, and
Sure.
I know there's other families too that have bought in for other family members who are from out of town. So it's, you know, people ask us, do you have to be from North St. Paul? You know, the answer is
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And they can be an active
Sure.
veteran right now. They can be in the service right now. We've had a few of those.
I know that the original plan was to start to actually break ground last spring and begin construction, but there were some complications, and I know some people were wondering, why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? And but there were good reasons for it.
Right, and that goes back to when we got the bonding and the legacy grant. Now it just accelerated us to be able to do the whole project at once.
Right.
So in order to do that, you know, there's certain things that we have to, I guess, you know, for the building process, the plans have to be more scrutinized a little bit.
Right.
You know, for the state.
There are
You know,
state regulations.
There's
that
state
you have to follow.
regulations that we have to follow.
Sure.
And we want to make sure we do it right.
Sure.
So, you know, we probably could have done it this fall, but I think by what we're doing, by waiting a few months and doing it in the spring, we're going to have everything put together.
Yeah.
We'll have the granite on site, we'll have the bricks on site before we build, and
Right.
I think it's just going to be a great.
So
a great line.
you've ordered or will order the granite and the pavers and store those over the winter then?
Correct.
Right. They're the longest lead time materials.
Okay.
The granite, which we selected from Cold Spring, Minnesota, is the same type of granite that's used on the Korean War Memorial in Washington and
Right.
on the Vietnam down at the Capitol. And because of its color and its enhancement of the etching process on here. So it's about 5 months. It's not so much the work as getting in the queue to have your order completed. So by ordering this now and getting it in the fall, and the same thing with the pavers, which we have down below, we will be ready when the concrete's completed to put our these
You'll have
perfect
it,
pieces right
so you
at
can
right on
keep the process
site.
going.
Right,
So-
right.
Well, it's another example of how you don't know what you're getting into. Do you have a plan for when this might be complete? Or you're going to start in the spring then?
Well, we're going to order the granite, and if Terry, you can pick up one of those bricks. These are a sample of the bricks that people purchase. We'll be ordering right now 450 of these printed bricks. This is an example from a North St. Paul who was lost in action, still missing in action, Roger Swanson in 1968, but they'll look like this.
Okay.
They have a line with the name, the rank, and the era that they served. And this can be any era, lots of freedom for the person to put in their information. But we'll be ordering 450 of these, about 3,100 blanks, and then these will be distributed throughout the 3 red areas of the design.
Okay.
The granite, these will take about 4 months. The granite is about 5 months. So by the time they all come in, we are approaching the months, 7 months of bad weather in Minnesota or something like that?
After last
4
year, yeah, I don't know. If
Who
we're-
knows?
4 months of good weather to build. So maybe it's err on the side of caution.
Right.
Yeah, it's always interesting how this goes and how you never know what to expect.
Right,
Or you should understand that before starting, which of course,
You know, and we looked for help from other veteran groups that, you know, have built veteran memorials or parks, and, you know, I think they all have the same answer. I mean, it's a struggle.
sure.
A lot of them have built it, and they're underwater with, you know, trying to fundraise too.
Right.
So I think there's quite a few of those. Where our philosophy was, we're going to have the money in the bank before we build anything. We're not going to go out there and ask for money from the city, or, you know, if we don't have it, we're not going to build it. So.
Right.
So I think the team itself has just been wonderful, and we've been plugging along, and we keep getting these surprises that, you know, number one, people are really buying into it. We've raising a lot of money on our own. You know, we've raised over $100,000 so far.
You just hit
Just-
that
just on our
100,000
own.
mark. You're
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So, you know, with the bonding and the legacy, that brings us up to $210,000. 200 and, you know, probably 220 by the time we're going to be ready to go. So it's just been, you know, we have all the money in the bank, so we won't have to borrow any money from the city.
Any
or
accounting
anything.
person would tell you that's the way to do it, right?
Correct, correct.
You can see from what Terry said, there are issues with some financing some of the monuments within the state. But when we did our presentation to the House downtown last spring,
One of two
one of
presentations.
two, one was to the Senate, one was to the House, you could see the questions from the representatives started coming like, how did you do it?
Oh,
Because I think they were more interested in finding out how you did it so that they could put one
Sure.
in their community.
Sure.
That's the way the questions came, informational questions.
So you did get good positive feedback from
Oh,
Very
those
positive.
meetings?
And we had, you know, Leon Lilly and Chuck Uyghur, Senator Uyghur,
Sure.
helping us along, and they're advocates for us.
Right.
So it was, I think having them as advocates was very positive for us, and I think the way Dan presented it to the House and to the Senate, they just fell in love with him. I mean, how could you not fall in love
Oh,
with this
sure.
guy? I mean,
Yeah.
he just said,
I'm not going to be. No, Chuck and Leon set everything up for us to go down there. They, the mayor was right along with us. Our city manager was with us, and we did our presentations with a little bit of coaching, and it turned out really well. And we felt positive coming out of
Sure.
each of those presentations.
great.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, I was going to ask you, we just have a few minutes left, but what was the city's role in this? You being a part of the city government, why, I imagine you got involved in other different ways.
sure. Well, number one was getting the park itself. You know, the city owns the park.
Okay.
So the city, you know, will maintain the park. So the veterans will be building the memorial on a city-owned park. The other couple things are the city is going to put in lighting for the memorial, and also bring water in from across the street, so we can have irrigation and possibly a drinking fountain.
So
over
it'd be
at
a
the site.
nicely maintained park
So
with
it'd be,
the
yeah, very
irrigation.
nicely maintained. In the city, you know, we haven't worked out the total details yet, but the city will maintain the park then. But we also have some other avenues that the JROTC from North High may also take a interest in maintaining the
Right.
park. So it might be less of the city to maintain it, because we'll probably have some other people who want to take charge of that.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about the landscaping plan too, just to give a brief idea of what's happening with that?
Well, so here's another, you know, kind of glitch to the plan was this whole landscaping, and we don't know landscaping at all.
Sure.
So we asked the North St. Paul Green,
Sure.
and you know who's wonderful with downtown and
Yeah.
surrounding plantings through the city. So Claudia Madigan and her group got together, and they went through the landscape plan with the landscape architect, and they're the ones picking out all the flowers or
Sure.
you know the shrubbery that's going to go in it.
Okay.
So it's been so they're on board now too, and they just love being a part of it, because
Good.
it's going to be something that, you know, I don't think they'll maintain it, but I think they're going to enjoy knowing that they had a part of it.
I think they have their hands full just
Right.
dealing with the downtown area.
Right,
So
right.
I don't want to forget to mention that the prime partner in all of this has been DSGW, our architectural firm,
Right.
who was in North St. Paul at one time. They have been so great a partner for us to give us, on our design team, the architectural and virtual concept of the park. We had a crude drawings,
Sure.
which evolved to these great drawings and have continued to evolve to our greeter statue and our bricks and our lighting. And now Claudia has added on to the landscaping aspect of it, enhancement with the right shrubs and
Right.
tree selection and that. So, like you say, when it gets to an area of expertise, there's always somebody out there who's willing to come aboard and give us a hand with that, another volunteer.
sure, all kinds of people that you didn't really know about
No.
before, and are going to make it a much better place. So that's great.
Yeah.
We have a lot of in-kind too that people
Oh,
are
sure.
donating.
That's another thing.
Shifskis and
Larson.
Larson,
Yeah.
Alan Larson. The person that drew up the brochure, it
Right.
was all in kind. So
Yeah, it's been quite an experience.
Yeah.
So.
Lilly Suburban News.
Right,
It's done
We're
quite a few.
regularly mentioned. They give us an ad time
right,
for in-kind,
Yeah.
for
yeah,
paver order form, and a description of our latest, our permanent design now. And news articles to keep the public aware of the status of the project.
right,
So everybody's aware. And then North St. Paul News and our, Lori does it in our newsletter from our,
utility
Utility
newsletter.
Yeah,
Bill,
so the
yeah.
city's on board that way, trying
Right.
to get the word
Yep.
out. And
Well,
Just to- if
we
we
are
can, just real
out of
quick
time,
here.
but why don't you quickly show that? Yeah,
I can just show the greeter statue here. This is made out of the granite from Cold Spring. This was a fallen soldier from North St. Paul. So
right,
the image is on the state of Minnesota. It's got a star. It's a Minnesota city. And the enhancement of the sketch goes to the black
Right.
granite. And on the reverse side of it will be the Star Spangled Banner, the whole theme being the flag.
okay. Well, great. Well, I think we covered most. You can always think of more to say, I'm sure. But
Oh, I'm sure.
we covered most of what you wanted to talk about. So I appreciate both of you coming on, Dan Fisher and Terry Furlong. So thanks a
for
lot,
giving us the
fellas.
Our
opportunity.
pleasure. Thank you.
We're out of time on this month's show. Join us again next month when we'll bring you more news about North St. Paul. I'm Paul Anderson, speaking for everyone at the City of North St. Paul. Thank you for watching.